is a very, very like a word which comes to our mind as a pharmacy student. And in recent times, especially during COVID time, every person I think on this earth knows about clinical trial because everyone was going through vaccine clinical trials and everybody was hearing the vaccine are in clinical trial phase. So this particular word became very famous recently. Even those who were not aware about this word, they actually became aware. So everything has its past. So whatever we are doing today, there is a past link to it. So past is very important to understand the present. And once we understand the present, we can prepare ourselves for the future. So that is why I had kept this particular topic, the past, present, and future of clinical trials in India. So when the word comes clinical trial, there is a very, very important thing which is linked to it, that is biomedical ethics, which is linked to clinical trials. That is a foundation stone of any clinical trial, whatever we are conducting. So all these clinical trials which are being conducted on this earth follow some basics of ethical principles involved in it. So we will be discussing on that, and we will be discussing on some of the past event what had happened. So officially, I welcome you again all. So myself, Dr. Kanav Khera, I am professor at School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Department of Pharmacy Practice, lovely profession university. So I had around 15 years of research and teaching experience in clinical research, and I had been involved in clinical trials and academic clinical trials for past many years. So first, I will be starting with the past. So clinical trial past. So it will be starting with ethics in biomedical research. For all the young researchers which are present here, I think many of them are from B.pharm background. So clinical trial terminology when it comes. So what it is. So there is an organization called as ICH, okay, which is a global organization. They define clinical trial as a systematic study of new drugs in human subject to generate new data for discovering or verifying its clinical, pharmacological, and other effects. Mostly in clinical trials, we will be determining the safety and efficacy of the new drugs. So that is what the official definition says. And as you know that human is always very curious to know new things and to try new things, and a properly planned and executed clinical trials, believe me or not, it's a very powerful experiment and it can change the world altogether. So this is how all it began. So I will be spending around 10 minutes quickly for some of the past events which had happened. So if you go back to early 1700, so Dr. James Lind, actually scurvy was a very common problem among the sailors, because the sailors who were traveling in the sea, they have to spend months together in the sea, and they were developing scurvy. So Dr. James Lind, actually what he did was he tried lemon juice among those group, and for the very first time, this type of clinical trial was conducted. So James Lind, a naval surgeon, conducting a clinical trial in 1947 to assess the utility of therapies for scurvy, and in generally considering the origin of modern clinical trials. So his name is like considered as an originator for the modern clinical trial. And there were many other past history attached to it, like for example, streptomycin. And this was, if you go backdated history, this was officially one of the first randomized trial which had happened by using the drug streptomycin. So what they did, they divided the groups into two and they tried streptomycin in one of them. And these are some of the landmark key events which I will be discussing. To name a few, the most important event in the history of modern clinical trial, what I will say, is the Nazis experiment, the Nuremberg Code of 1947. So the Nuremberg Code, I will say, sets the foundation pillar of the present biomedical ethics. So any person who is conducting clinical trials, they have to actually follow the Nuremberg Code and Declaration of Helsinki of 1964. Then there were many other studies like Turkish syphilis study. We will be touching few of them like Belmont report and all. Over here you can see, as I told you already, the past is very, very important. This is one of the most important picture in the history of today modern clinical trials. This is a picture from the court of law, and over here you can see the these are the physicians which are being tried in the court of law under Nazis army. These are the physicians who had conducted unhuman experimentation on humans, and they were tried in the court of law. And that is where the Nuremberg Code came into picture in 1967. And this is the another image which is actually the landmark image, and from where the term comes, the guinea pig. So over here you can see these are the war prisoners which are being used by the Nazis army for unethical clinical trials. And over here you can see they are packed in racks, and they are waiting for the turn to be part of these trials. And many of these prisoners actually die by the end of the experiments. So that is why they had used guinea pigs term. So Nazis human experimentation. Okay, just a quick, my voice and my slides are visible and audible, right? Just for a quick response. You're facing
Yes,
any
sir.
glitches? It's all good, right? Okay,
Yes,
fine.
sir.
Thank you so much for a quick feedback. The German physicians in Nazis military, they were conducting a series of pseudo-scientific experiments. So this is what the term we use. And there were many concentration camps which were there in these army where the war prisoners were being tried. One of the very important thing you have to remember is these prisoners which were used in the trial, there was no consent which was taken from these prisoners. So the prisoners' permission was not taken. They were forced to participate in these trials. And please remember, most of these prisoners died or they were permanently crippled at the end of the study results. So the Nuremberg Military Tribunal was formed to try these Nazis physician and administrator for the war crime. And you will not believe, when they were these physicians were tried in the court of law, you know what they defended themselves. They told the court that they were just following the orders from their supreme leader, that is the Hitler. So during in those days, there was no code for human ethics. So they told they were not doing anything unethical. They were just following the commands of their leader. So that is where, for the very first time, the world start recognizing that there should be some law pertaining to the clinical trial. So that is where the first code to ensure the right of the patient and establish the idea of voluntarily informed consent came into picture. So that is where the World War II physician conducting these experiments in concentration camp. And the most notorious physician was Dr. Joseph Mengele. And actually, this particular physician actually ran away and he was never tried in the court of law. But by the end of this trial of the Nuremberg Code, most of these physicians were actually given imprisonment because of their violation of the moral code of conduct of medical practices. So over here, these are some of the experiments which they had conducted, like malaria experiment, poison gas experiment, salt water experimentation, sterilization, poison gas experiments, and many other. So over here you can see these are some of the images. They were doing experiment on the twins. So what they do is they will inject one dye in one of the twin and they will see how the other twin react. So they were actually doing twin experiments. Over here you can see this is a freezing experiment in which they had taken a prisoner and they want to test hypothermia effect. So what they will do, they will take this prisoner and they will dip him in ice cold water at minus 21 degree Fahrenheit or minus 6 degrees Celsius, and they will observe and take reading of the patients or these prisoners till they die. So they want to see the effect of hypothermia. Over here you can see the malarial experiment, the concentration camp. More than 1,000 prisoner was being tried in this particular experiment. So what they did in this experiment, they will forcefully affect this prisoners with malarial parasite, and the malaria will develop in these prisoners, and then they will try different type of drugs in different group of prisoners and they will see which among the following drug is best, and many of these patients actually will die at the end of the experiments. Then what they will do was mustard gas experiment. So they will, as you know, mustard gas is a you can say very lethal and poisonous gas, and they will see how the human respond to these poisonous gases. So that is where the things comes into picture. Just a second. Okay, sorry for the inconvenience, for a small disruption. Just a minute. So the mustard gas experiment. So there were a lot of wound injuries among the participants, and that is where. So over here you can see the sulfonamide experiment. So what they used to do, sulfonamide was a very potent antibiotic in those days with having bactericidal effect. So what they used to do was they will take a prisoner and they will make a wound injury to these prisoners, and before the wound heals up, they will again cut that particular wound so that it gets infected, and then they will try these different like sulfonamide powder and other type of powders to check their response against the wound injury, because as you know, in the World War II time, the injuries were very common and infections were very common. And also the seawater experiment you can
Uh,
see over here.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, sorry to say, many students are not able to visible the slide. Please, you can share again.
Okay, they are not able to see the slide. Okay, now is it visible slides? Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I
Yes,
think
sir.
maybe on the full screen mode, I think the slides are not visible. But I hope now it is visible, right?
It's visible, sir. Visible.
Okay, okay. So I will just escape this full screen mode. I will just continue in this mode only. So in the sea water experiment, you can see that what they did was, they, as you know, the many of just a minute. Okay, just give me 2 minutes. I think there are many students which are joining. So we will be reconnecting. Just give me 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello.
There are many students which are waiting in the chat box. I think Sharif is sending one more link. So you can just tell the students that they will be sharing the link soon to them.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Many are waiting for the getting the link, and some are not able to join. So they are constantly calling regarding that.
Yes, yes. I think Sharif was calling me. So he is again creating one more link for the students. Sharif sir, are you there? Okay, I think they will be sharing that link. So meanwhile, I will just continue this. So in this seawater experiment, you can see that these prisoners were actually being only given seawater, and they want to check how the prisoners survive on seawater only. So these are some of the experimentation and other experimentation like sterilizations and many other. And these are some of the books which was there. Like you can see the trial of war criminals, the Nazis doctor. So these are the landmark historical books which are available. The other landmark studies which were there was syphilis study. Under this syphilis study, you can see that over here there was a American physician, and this particular study was being tried and tested for African American Negro men was conducted, and this was one of the longest study in the history of mankind. So in early 1920s, syphilis was a very common disease, and over here you can see that in 1932 the US public health, they started investigating on syphilis. So in this particular trial, this trial was done on a patient population of Tuskegee in Alabama on African American population. Please note, this population was a vulnerable population and minority population. And this study actually meant for only 6 months. But this study went unnoticed for around, you can say, 40 years. It went unnoticed. And these patients were being tried and tested for next 40 years. So from 1932 to 1972, this trial was done. And around 600 black men was being tried. and they were never taken any consent from these black Negro men. So please note, consent was not taken, minority group was taken, and the study which was meant for 6 months went up to 40 years. So these are some of the ethical violation which was done by these people in those days. And the patients, as you know, the penicillin was available for syphilis to be treated. And these patients were never given a chance to get treatment for syphilis, even though penicillin was. So the right of the patients was also withdrawn. They were never given. And over here you can see the New York Times heading of 1972, where actually this actually was disclosed, and there was a lot of inquiries which were carried out. And because of this experiment, the Belmont report for the very first time was issued by America, that is US National Commission for Protection of Human Subject. And for the very first time, the world was hearing about these three principles. That is principle of respect, the principle of beneficence, and principle of justice. So this is few of the landmark studies, and then we were having sulfanilamide tragedy. Okay, before I go ahead with this sulfanilamide tragedy, I would like to go to the present. Then I will come back to the sulfanilamide tragedy. So over here you can see in India, the new clinical trial rule has been launched by Government of India in 2019. So in 2019, Government of India launched this particular trial, this particular guidelines, and the clinical trial how we were conducting before 2019, it has been completely revised. So I will just tell that why there was a need to revise this particular guideline. So as you know, between Jan 2005 and June 2012, so in those days, there were a lot of clinical trials which were getting approved. So you can see there are around 475 trials which were approved in those days. And on Jan 2013, Supreme Court, there were a lot of irregularities which were being reported. And Supreme Court came very heavily on the regulators. And what they did was they revoked the power of regulators to approve trial for new chemical entities. So there were no clinical trial which was getting approved. So you can see that the Supreme Court, because of the irregularities, now we will be discussing some of the past. Over here you can see Indian court demand regulators of clinical trial, illegal clinical trials creating havoc in the country, and Supreme Court wants safety net for drugs in clinical trials. To name a few, Indian Supreme Court mandate videotaping, Indian patients become human guinea pigs, which was reported. Drug companies are facing mounting pressure to investigate reports of new medicine being tested on some of the poorest people in the country without their knowledge. So you can see that in India, the poor patients were being exploited, and they were being part of these illegal clinical trials without their knowledge. The consent was not taken. And over here you can see the National Herald, one of the world's biggest circular newspaper, how poor Indians were used as guinea pigs in medical clinical trials. So Indian Parliament also came very heavily on the regulators. You can see, and the panel blast US and Indian organization for conducting illegal ethical lapses. And even in the BMJ, the topmost journals, the John Hopkins admits scientists use Indian patients as guinea pig. So finally, what happened was on March 25, 2019. So in the 2013, the Supreme Court stopped all the clinical trials, and they directed Government of India to design the new rules and regulation and to make more stringent laws pertaining to this. So that is where the origin of this rule came. And this rule is now applicable to all the industry. Every industry is following this rule. So this is a very, very important update which had happened. And this has surpassed the previous rules, that is your Schedule Y, and the Drug and Cosmetic Act 10A part has been now removed. Means it has upgraded that. So now all the trials were being used by this particular regulation. So these rules apply to human use clinical trials, bioavailability, bioequivalence studies, and regulation of ethics committee relating to clinical trials and biomedical health research. One of the most important update in this regulation which had happened is there is an extensive revision of the fees which is being charged by the regulators now. So the regulator is charging quite heavy fees from the industry. So over here you can see that around 3 lakh Indian rupees is being charged by the regulators for the phase 1 clinical trials, and for every phase of the trial a heavy fees has been charged. There has been new forms which has been launched, so I will be showing you this guideline also. Over here you can see that this is the form which I was talking about. So you can see on 19th March 2019 this particular guideline has been launched. So you can see this is a gazetted document, and I will just show you the English version of this, because any gazette document which is launched in India, it will be in Hindi and English version will be available. So let me go down. So yes, over here you can see the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, which is regulating this particular principle. So the notification has been sent. So from November 2019, it became a law. So every company, every institution, every researcher has to follow this particular law now, this particular guidelines. Even as a young researcher, you will be very surprised to know that even academic clinical trials, the trials conducted at academic levels, is a part of this. So that you have to remember. So that is very, very important to remember, that even academic clinical trials are coming under this. The trials being done, the research studies being done at the college level. So this is very, very important to remember. So going back, so these are the forms which you have to fill in case if you want to submit for clinical trials. The silent feature is this particular guidelines is taking into consideration the new therapeutic options such as novel drug delivery system, modified organism, monoclonal antibodies, stem cell derivatives, gene therapeutics products, xenografts, and many others. And the provision of waiver of local phase 3 trials also is there. For example, in case if any company wants to get a waiver for clinical trial, for example, if any foreign company wants to conduct clinical trial in India, and if they want a waiver, even the provision are there in case if that molecule has been approved in some other country. So even waivers can be given. And believe me or not, during COVID time, the Pfizer was one of the company which has actually asked for the waiver of clinical trial for like launching their vaccine in India. But due to their indemnity clause, which was put forward by Pfizer, the government of India has not given them the waiver. Many of you will be thinking, okay, what is indemnity clause? So indemnity clause which was put forward by Pfizer was, in case if anything goes wrong with Pfizer vaccination, nobody in India can sue Pfizer, neither an individual, neither the governments, nobody. So the Pfizer was asking for a protection over legal claims, but government of India didn't approve that, and that's one of the reasons that Pfizer vaccination was not available in India.
And also in this particular guidelines, the new provisions are being provided. So like the timeline, over here you can see the Sugam platform is being launched by Government of India, which is a very, very important platform for online, you can say, submission of clinical trial documents by the research companies. I will just show you the Sugam platform. Over here you can see this is the CDO website. In CDSCO website, that is Central Drug Standard Control Organization, you can see the Sugam platform. There is a link to the Sugam platform, and if you click this particular platform link, the Sugam platform will open up. So this is some of the new things which has come up in the recent time. So over here you can see the Sugam platform has been opened up, and apply for new drug subsequent, you can say, investigational new drug, you can apply over here. So the companies has to register in this platform, and they can actually send all their documents to Government of India. And not only that, even the accountability has now been very, very important. Accountability means previously it was taking a lot of time, like months together, to get any approvals from the government. But now in this, the time has been now fixed. That is, within 30 days, okay, of the clinical trial termination, licensing authority should be notified, and all the adverse drug reaction which are being reported, serious adverse events or deaths which are being reported, they have to be reported within 14 calendar days. And over here you can see that even the regulator has to respond within 90 days. A decision has to be conveyed, okay, and whatever, whether it is yes or no, it has to be conveyed. So these are some of the new things which has come up in this new guidelines, which is launched by the government, because this particular guideline is getting revised on a regular basis. And over here you can see, even though we have new regulations, new guidelines in place, and I hope many of you remember this, contaminated cough syrups from India linked to 70 child deaths. It happened before. India halts the production of cough syrups. These are the news heading of last year October. In last year October, many in some of the countries in Africa, they started receiving complaints like, because of a adulterate cough syrup, many kids died in a particular country. And this was one of the company that is made in pharmaceuticals, which was actually put under the scanner by WHO for spurious drug or substandard products, which was linked to the child death. And WHO has issued alert. Now, what is the after effect of this? Remember sulfonamide tragedy. You will be shocked to know that in this syrup, these reports which were coming, this sulfonamide tragedy was actually happened long back. Over here you can see, in this tragedy there was a substance called as diethyl glycol, which was used to dissolve sulfonamide. And diethyl glycol is actually a poison, okay, and this particular syrup was given a flavor of raspberry, so the taste of raspberry became the taste of death because of the compound name known as diethyl glycol. And because of this, if you compare, this was happening in 1938, and in India you can see still again after so many years, after almost 90 years, the same thing happened again. The component of this particular syrup which was responsible for child death was also similar, that is diethyl glycol. And what is the aftermath of that? So once this particular report starts coming out, the government of India came very heavily on the pharma companies which were responsible. There were a lot of surprise inspections. So the notice came in October 2022, and in March 28 we can see that license of 18 pharma companies were cancelled for spurious drugs. Crackdown on pharma companies, you can see over here the how the present affects the future. So the pharma companies were coming under hammer and lot of things happen, and this is what the future looks like. So because of the past events which are happening, even though the new drug law is very very important, very good, and there are now continuous amendments which are happening, so the government of India finally constituted an expert committee to review the Pharmacy Act of 1948. So over here you can see, this is the circular which was given on March 2023, and these are the committee members which has been framed by the government of India to revise your Drug and Cosmetic Act and the pharmacy education in India. And I think for your GPAT examinations, these will be very, very important for your knowledge, for your competitive exams. That is, this act will be revised, okay? And to make recommendation for restructuring of Pharmacy Council of India, and the pharmacy education itself in India will be revised. But still, even after so many hurdles and so many setbacks and the new regulations are being launched, the future is very bright. The clinical research industry in India is going to grow in double digits almost. So you can see over here, from 2041 billion dollars industry in 2020, the global industry is going to grow by up to 60 billion dollars by 2028. This is the US clinical trial market share. You can see that the US markets accounts for almost 60 to 70% of the global share, which is continuously increasing. And also the Indian clinical trial market shares will be increasing exponentially. You can see over here, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 phases of clinical trials will increase exponentially. So the if I give you a small history, in India in 2005 there were only 4 or 5 industries which were available, but right now there are more than 500 industry which are directly or indirectly doing clinical trials in India. And these are some of the major areas in which clinical trials are happening, that is autoimmune disorders, pain management, oncology, diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disorders. So these are some of the very, very important areas where most of these clinical trials are happening. And these are the Indian clinical trial markets. You can see over here the intervention trials, observation trials, expanded access trials. This is where the Indian most of the trials are happening. So these are some of the market reports. If you can see over here, the market size is around USD $47 billion, and revenue forecast by 2028 is around $69 billion. And some of the key players or the key companies which are there in the this area is, like, you can say, uh, Novartis is there, then you have ClinPace is there, you have IQVIA is there. So many topmost companies are working. And if you ask about this one in Indian, there are other companies like Perexcel is there, GVK Biosciences, Syngene, and many other companies are working. Not only that, even the IT companies in India like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, they are also working very closely with pharma companies for their pharmacovigilance division or big data handling. So the most of the IT companies have their own pharmacovigilance divisions which are working in close connect with clinical trial industry in India. So over here you can see the pharmacy of the world. The Indian pharma industry is considered as the pharmacy of the world because India provides the most important generic medicine to more than 200 countries. And 8 out of 20 global generic companies are from India. And 55% of export are happening from India. And 90% of WHO pre-qualified APIs are sourced through India. So India as a whole is considered to be a very good market. And Indian pharma industry is likely to grow by USD $130 billion by 2030. You will be very surprised to know that if I give you an overall understanding of clinical trial industry, there is many individuals which are working in this industry. There are many specialization. For example, if you ask about, there is a specialization if you understand the drug discovery pipeline. So the very first thing which is there is discovering a molecule in clinical trial industry. So in drug discovery, you will be first part is discovering a molecule either via synthetic mode in the chemistry labs, synthesis, or through natural mode, that is your cognosy through plants or other natural means. So one side you have pharmaceutical chemistry, on one side you have pharmacognosy, which are involved in discovering of the molecules or entities, active moieties. So this particular drug discovery takes of synthesis of molecule takes around 6 months to 1 year. Nowadays there are a lot of high computational softwares are available which are helping the pharma companies in you can say finding out the targets. Then the next phase of the trials is preclinical trial, that is your pharmacology. So those students who go further in higher studies, like most of you are preparing for your GPATs, because as this is a career orientation session, so if you are interested in animal handling and animal experimentation or in vivo experimentation, because that is the next part of the clinical trial. So you have the molecules, now you will test them in the animal models. So you will be going in the animal experimentation, that is the preclinical trials. And this phase also is going to be around 6 months to 1 year time. So overall total drug discovery and preclinical trials takes around 6 months to 1.5 year time frame for coming out a molecule. Now next come is your clinical trial phase, that is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. That is where the maximum amount of time and money is invested in conducting clinical trials, because these trials will be there for around 5 to 7 years duration. And this is where the maximum amount of money has been invested, and that is the reason why Many of the companies are having their clinical trial divisions in India because India is considered to be a big hub for conducting clinical trials. So the specializations like M.pharm pharmacy practice or Pharm D, nowadays you can hear about Pharm D also. But if you are considering master courses, then there is a branch name as M.pharm pharmacy practice, which deals with pharmacovigilance, clinical trials, regulations, and many other departments, which deals with clinical trials, clinical trial managers, even medical scribing, and all those things comes under pharmacy practice departments. So that is how the drug discovery journey happens. But there is a huge risk involved. Like, for example, if you are having around 5,000 molecules, potential molecules in the beginning, maybe only a handful of molecules will be finally reaching the market. So there is a huge risk involved. But by keeping all these things on one side, the Indian pharma industry is going to grow multiple folds. You can see it will reach around $130 billion by year 2030. And there are a lot of activities in clinical trials are happening in India, especially after COVID. You can see there are a lot of interest has come from the global players in India to partner with India, and Indian exports are also increasing. These are the latest figures you can see. Indian exports are continuously growing at around 10% in 2021. These are the market shares available. And also in India, you can see there are a lot of new interest which has come out in e-pharma. So e-pharmas are also going to play a very big role, and they will be a key driving factor. But there are a lot of regulatory hurdles about the existence of e-pharma. So that is a different issue, because of one of the practice. There is a regulation in India. I think many of you may not be aware about. There is a regulation by Government of India, that is Pharmacy Practice Regulation 2015, which says that every person in India or every pharmacist actually should follow pharmacy practice regulation. I will just show you that what is that regulation. So over here you can see this is a document by PCI, that is the Pharmacy Council of India, which makes pharmaceutical care mandatory for all the pharmacists to be given to all the patients. So over here you can see this is in 2015, the Pharmacy Council of India. This is a gazette document, and every pharmacist, whether hospital, clinical, if you are a licensed pharmacist, you should know this pharmacy practice regulation. That is where the M.pharm pharmacy practice comes into picture, and that is where even the syllabus are now getting revised in India because of this. And the one of the reason why e-pharmas are going to get banned, or the prescription medicine are going to get banned through e-pharma, is because of this particular regulation, because none of the companies are following this particular regulation. And that is where there are a lot of regulatory hurdles which are involved. So pharmacy practice in coming days is going to become one of the very important aspect or a driving growth factor in India and globally for, you can say, the trials. So over here you can see there are India as a hub. Why we are preferred as clinical research hub? We have the largest pool of patients in India. There are a lot of patients which are there. So the world class medical facilities are available. You have familiar medical facility as Western world. English is very commonly used in India. The cost for conducting a clinical trial is very less when compared to the West. Not only that, in India, we follow one of the most important guidelines. I don't know how many of you know this, but in India, we also follow ICH GCP guidelines. This is a global standard guidelines. For example, if you are a researcher and you are conducting a clinical trial, you have to follow ICH GCP guidelines in place. And also in India, the patent law has been changed. Now it is product patent. So even the patent laws in India support the global industry. And these are some of the structure of the industry which are being involved in clinical research. You have CRO, that is clinical research organizations, which actually do a part of trials for the companies or the sponsor. These are some of the topmost companies which are there in clinical research. And in case if you are interested, you can get in touch with me. I can help you getting connect with many of these companies. And these are some of the opportunities which are available in clinical research, because as a young researcher, many of you may not be aware about the opportunities in pharmacy practice and clinical research area which are there, because nowadays you have specialization like M.pharm pharmacy practice, PharmD, pharmacovigilance. So all these things comes under this. These are the jobs which many industries are looking for. That is clinical trial, pharmacovigilance, medical writing, patient reported outcome, medical scribing, e-pharma, health insurance, data analytics. And these are some of the other like SMOs and protocol writing, quality assurance, clinical project managers, clinical research associates, drug chemists, quality control analysts, medical writers. So many are there. And these are some of the top IT companies which are now recruiting people, especially young pharmacists. Even in your B.pharm, if you have knowledge of clinical practice, pharmacy practice, if you have knowledge of these areas, the companies are preferring the pharmacy students, even at B.pharm levels. Definitely at master's levels, they are. Just a minute. Okay, so that's all for my lecture. Uh, Sharif sir, are you there? Okay, this is my contact details in case if you have any queries.
Thank you,
Um,
sir, for the
yes,
very
ma'am.
elaborate lecture, and it will be a lot of help for all the aspiring GPAT students and the students, and they have been much guided with what is clinical trial and how it was in the past and how it has become a very lucrative career in the future. Thank you a lot for this insight and your presentation. Um,
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, if any student is interested in exploring this particular area, so at School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, we are providing a lot of support and career guidance to the young researchers and students for any of the doubt clearings which they want. And we have a lot of specializations over here in case if they want to explore those also. We will be happy to help them out with any of the opportunities at School of Pharmaceutical Sciences. So thank you so much. And I think over to you, ma'am. You can now share your thoughts in case. Hello.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay,
Yes,
okay.
and all the students, I had shared one link for those students who want to explore this area further.
So there is not much to add with sir lecture, but I want to tell you just because I have also an past experience of working at Drug Regulatory Office, means FDA Bhavan. So I have gone through the procedure that how this clinical trial procedure goes on and how, and in a gist, I want to share only one slide, and for the students I want to show you all. Hope it's visible. It's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, okay. So, sir has told you a lot about it and in a very clear manner. I am just telling in a very gist that whenever we are going for a clinical trial, we always have a goal to find out the indication that is we can give a new treatment, and for that things we need a disease, and what can be the interventions, what type of patient population we are going to choose, and what will be the final outcome. Maybe there will be a clinical outcome or a surrogate outcome. So, as sir told you all that the clinical trial will go through various phases. But for you all students, I want to tell that whenever you are taking a new molecule and any company is taking a new molecule and want to go for the clinical trial, so that time that it is an investigational new drug, that is IND. This IND, the company has to apply for it after a clean preclinical study, that is animal study. After the animal studies have been done around 6 months, then it can go for an IND application. And after IND application has been approved by the Drug Regulatory Authority of India, you all know it, it's Central Drug Standard Control Organization, CDSCO, and DCGI is the head of it, Drug Control General of India. Then it will go for the phase of studies, the phase 1, the phase 2, the phase 3. And if it is successful in all the phases, then the company will be allowed for the NDA application, that a new drug approval application to the DCGI for marketing authorization. Now DCGI will see how was the phase 1 study, how was the phase 2. In phase 1, generally it is an human pharmacology study. It is the first in human clinical trial study, and it's conducted on healthy volunteers, and to find out the potential toxicity, the tolerability rate, the ADME, the PK/PD, and the desired outcome, whatever they will get. Then they will go for the therapeutic exploratory study, where they will fix the dose, the regimen. For the phase 3, there will be randomized study, there will be controlled efficacy studies, also whether the how the dose relationship curves are coming, how the endpoints can be detected, how the biological marker can be got from it, and then it will be confirmed. The therapeutic conformity studies that no, if it was a cytotoxic drug, we were looking for something as an anti-cancer. It has proven that it's an anti-cancer, and its tolerability level is okay, its safety level is okay, and then they can go for the new drug application to the DCGI for the for its new drug application. Now DCGI will go through all your procedures and what are the ethics you have followed and whatever things have taken place, the protocols, the clinical trial procedures, the whatever arrangements, and how come everything has been done. If it goes well, then you will get an approval, the company gets an approval, and then after its approval comes the post marketing surveillance study, the PMS, or the phase 4 study, and it's the phase 4 or the therapeutic use study. Means after the drug has been launched in the market, you cannot sit at home and think, oh, I have done a great job. You have to continually monitor whether it has the whatever you have thought of its long-term safety, it is going, the dose response is okay, the mortality, morbidity, everything is going accordingly planned, and this post-approval studies go on. In this place, as sir was telling just now, pharmacovigilance plays a very important role. In this place, pharmacovigilance is done by the company. It's go on sharing the data with the pharmacovigilance of the Institute of our India and also the DCGI. And many a times, due to there is discrepancies, the company may have to stop the drug. There may be a recall from the market. So in this place, the pharmacovigilance plays a very important role. So as we teachers at Pharma State Academy, we are training the kids for this basics, and you will also get through like this presentation in your everyday classes, so that you can study well, you can understand well, and also you can further when you are completing your B.pharm, you can go for such courses, especially the CRAs, in which there are many learning experience, or in the pharmacovigilance field, where there is very lucrative jobs, and also IT companies, as sir told, has put up the pharmacovigilance offices where you can go through this. So this is the clinical trial pipeline in a drug discovery. Sir has told about it, that there may be a cell-based approach or target-based approach, screening, and how the preclinical study and the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and how the registration happens and manufacturing. See, this is a very long thing. It's a very long thing, but in a gist, this is the matter. So, hope all the students present have understood my slide. So once more, before finishing the lecture, I want to once more tell that if anybody interested, please join our academy, the Pharma Street Academy, and you will get all notes, all computer-based tests, assignments, everything, and also video lectures of everyday classes. So if you are not able to join the classes, after the classes also you can go through it. And if you want to contact, do contact in this number as admissions are going on, because all of you are aware that the semesters have started. So it's better to start with the first only, because you all have a long syllabus in every semester. So that you can cover up the whole syllabus. So this is our number. Okay, that's it from me. Okay. I want to thank Kanav sir and also LPU University and Dr. Monica Gulati and Vice Chancellor sir for giving us an opportunity in such a big platform to put forward our institute, and hope that you all will try to join our institute so that we can also help you in your academics. That's all over from my side.
Students, we have another few minutes. In case if you have any queries, we will be happy to take few questions. So students, if you have any queries. Yes, we will be sharing the slides with all of you, and some of the important contents I will be mailing personally to all the participants. And in case if you have any queries, you can unmute yourself and you can ask also in case if you have any doubts. But one key home message is like in coming days, the new clinical trial regulation is very important pillar for all the students, especially of pharmacy, to know it, whether it is covered in your syllabus or not covered. Because many of the things, please note, because when you are looking for your higher studies and all these things, so definitely you have to go beyond the curriculum also, because what industry require and what we are studying. So there is actually a huge gap because the syllabus are getting revised not that quickly. So, but industry is changing very fast, especially after COVID. The industry has changed completely. So you have to keep yourself up to date what is happening in and around you. So that is why the purpose of today lecture was to make you understand the past, to make you understand where we are presently. That is where the 2019 regulation comes into picture, and how the future will be, and what are the challenges. So you can see the regulatory challenges, everything is there. So as a young students, one of the advice, please update yourself with the current knowledge, the new guidelines which are happening, the amendments which are happening, everything you should be up to date. So any student, any doubts if you have? Okay, I think no doubts. Okay, I think Sharif sir, are you there? So thank you so much, all of you, for your patient listening. Okay, so one student is asking about job scope in clinical studies. Okay, so there are actually a lot of scope in clinical studies. So, for example, if you want to go and opt for higher studies like PhDs and you want to go and study abroad, so there are a lot of job opportunities available in that, in academics and research. There are a lot of opportunities for clinical studies in hospital settings. There are big corporate hospitals and government hospitals. You just name a few, like AIMS New Delhi, PGI Chandigarh, Fortis, Apollo, Manipal hospitals, Vedanta. So these are some of the top corporate hospitals where all these clinical trials are happening. So in case if you have the knowledge of clinical trials and clinical studies, so definitely you can be a part of these big corporate hospitals and be part of the clinical trials divisions. And definitely in industry, as I already told you, there are more than 500 industry where you can use your clinical study knowledge of pharmacy practice and the subjects which are you are going to learn, like pharmacovigilance and many other. And these industry will absorb you like anything. Okay. So there are a lot of scope now for clinical studies in India. Okay, so thank you so much, one and all.
Thank, thank you, sir. Thank you a lot. Uh,
Okay, I think we can close the session then. I think it's time now.
yeah, sir.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
okay.
So thank you all the students for your patient listening, and you will be getting a feedback form very soon from all of us. And also, one of the very important news I would like to share with all of you at School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, especially those students who are interested in exploring herbal cosmetics. So there is now new opportunities. Herbal is going to boom in India and globally. So herbal industry is also now becoming a very important part of clinical trials. So now a lot of regulations which are happening in clinical trials pertaining to herbal cosmetics, because globally there is a lot of interest. So even at School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, we are launching some of the new courses over here. So even in case if you want to explore that further, I think Shafuddin will be sharing with you that also. So definitely, in case if you have any queries, just let us know about herbal cosmetics, pharmacy practice, pharmacovigilance, biomedical ethics. We will be very happy to help you. We have a lot of, even we have training centers over here, like we have CDSE approved pharmacovigilance centers we are having over here. So in case if you want to come down over here at Lovely, we will be welcoming you over here. And ma'am, from our side, uh, Revati ma'am, you are most
Yeah,
welcome to visit our campus on my
okay.
behalf. So whenever you are coming this side, just let us know. We will
Okay,
be
sir.
happy to host you here.
Surely, surely. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
okay, okay.
Okay, good day all. Thank you
Good
so
day.
much.
Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Thank you.